You cannot heal what is hidden. And a lot of people right now, if you polled them, they would say they're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they're anxious, they're depressed, but they can't name why. It's just this big cloud and bubble of chaos and confusion because so much is coming at them. So this inventory practice, you're answering 4 questions: what's right, what's wrong, what's confused, and what's missing. I think the confusion, we could all go, we don't know, but it's all confusing.
Just everything. Everything is confusing. And then what's wrong might need even more room.
Yeah,
you can add
exactly.
It seems to be a lot wrong.
But when you begin to name it, that actually gives you responsibility and agency on how to change it. You can't affect change in areas you can't define. And so part of it's getting honest, get below the hood, because what has happened in 2020 is we have distracted ourselves from actually naming the greatest fears, the greatest pains, the greatest loss, the greatest longing, because we don't dare utter it because we might actually have to take responsibility to see it look differently. Instead of victim, we want to be victorious because Christ calls us to that. And so he's inviting us into renewal, which means to be made new again and again and again. And that rhythm means every morning is a new mercy and it's a new chance to take agency for your day. Yes.
So when you're taking this inventory, you're going through what's right, what's wrong, what's confused, what's missing. You then identify, you can kind of see where the holes are.
Yeah, you can.
Right? So you're identifying those areas of weakness.
Right.
Which I think sometimes, there's an enemy that wants us to kind of sit in our shame and just stay there. But I love that you just like turn the page and you're like, okay, now we've taken an inventory. We're not going to take shame in the things that feel wrong or confusing. We're going to name them. We're going to take a hard look at them, and then what?
So there's contemplation, which is that inventory tool. So that's why it's a planner and a journal. And some of us are more planners, some of us are more journalers. I think they have to collide because you can contemplate and you can reflect and assess, but you could stay on your couch all day doing that. At some point, once you identify things, you invite God just to empower you to then act. So we've got to have an action plan and then a reflection plan. Act, reflect, tweak, autocorrect. And so the whole point of this is each day you get to start by taking agency, going, today I will. After you've identified, like for example, confusion, like what's confusing could be job loss. It could be transition that you didn't ask for. It could be you thought God was leading you here and all of a sudden you're over here. And it's just a big fat question mark. I think 2020 is a big fat question mark. We could just say there's confusion. We don't see what's on the other side, but God is saying, hey, I am a God of life, the author of life, and I am always doing a new thing. So while you cannot see it yet, what you can have are these daily breadcrumbs of faith, just taking one small step at a time. The reason why we don't want to wait till January is resolutions are only kept about by 20% of the people who establish a New Year's resolution because it's like a hard stop, it's cold turkey, you're going to change everything in your life. And whereas a rhythm is daily and it's practiced and it's not measured just in like big, massive quantities, but transformation one small step at a time.
Is it possible to do that now when it feels like we're on moving logs? Do you know what I mean? When you're trying to just figure out what is steady and it doesn't feel steady?
I actually think these rhythms are what steady you. I think they are kind of that grounding force that sustain you. So those 4 rhythms are rest, restore, connect, and create. So if you don't have a posture of rest,
and let me explain rest. I used to misunderstand it. I ended up writing about this. Like I used to misunderstand rest from being lazy.
Yeah, no.
But rest is not.
No, rest is intentional and requires pursuit. Jesus says, come into my rest. That's very different than come into my zoning out. That's not rest.
It's zoning
numbing out, like coping mechanisms, escape. That's not going to give you a revived, restored soul. He says, get away with me, recover your life, and you'll find rest for your soul. And then when you have that soul rest, you're coming back into life fueled from a posture of rest. You're not running to earn rest and you're kind of like zoning out. You're running anchored in rest, grounded in rest. That's why I talk about routines for deep sleep, then that morning routine where you go through the journal and the planner and you check off the things of intention. You be proactive instead of reactive to the pings and the nudges and the notifications on your phone. You're putting that down and you're going, oh, here is the intention that I'm going to decide in advance instead of reacting to all that's coming at me. So that's what I mean by a grounding force. You're establishing that first. Okay. That rest rhythm is the foundation, whether it's tech detox, observing Sabbath, quieting the noise, listening, all those things that help you then go, okay, like examine and confess, all that's in the journal, but it's as part of like getting your heart right before God so that that peace that passes understanding will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus from all the noise and the chaos that will continue, because the enemy wants to confuse.
Yes.
He wants to accuse and destroy, and you've got to have a grounding cadence of rest that God has invited you in.
So it's like the primer.
Yeah.
Okay, so your primer on your canvas is rest. What's the second rhythm?
Restore.
Okay.
So rest and restore are those input rhythms that fill you back up, that give you that stabilizing force. So restore, so rest is your inner life, your spiritual health. Restore is your physical life, your physical health, your body, being mindful, like I'm sore, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, my brain is clouded. Why? You take inventory of that. You know, like maybe what's wrong is I want to take a nap every afternoon at 3 o'clock when my kids get off the bus. And you're like, but I'm not supposed to do that. I need to be alive and awake and have energy for dinner and cooking and all those things. So for me, you know, I had to examine what was I eating, when was I eating the wrong things, like what was sugar doing to me, even just increasing my heart rate, getting serotonin released in my brain through brisk walks or stretching, or just being more mindful of my limits and then knowing how to tweak accordingly, because it's not about the scale. It's not about the size of the clothes. It's about the fuel that you've been given and that you're giving your body through food, through exercise, through just play, through adventure, just like letting yourself stop controlling everything and just be present, even physically, I think is an input rhythm that will ground you. I don't know about you, but right now, I mean, I know you're running, but fitness is a grounding, stabilizing force so that anxiety doesn't creep back in when the media wants to tell you this, that, or the other. You've got to have that lens of exhale.
Okay, so we've taken inventory. We're getting into the rhythms. We've got rest, restore.
Okay, and then now you've been filled to go back out. You actually want to care and nurture for the lives around you. So connect is all about your relational health, and create is all about your vocational health, your passions, your purpose, like the life that God's appointed and assigned you to, and how to do that from a place that's fueled with rest and restoration. And
you can actually, you're saying create or connect are the two output rhythms. Those are possible right now, because Rebekah, I'm looking at this time and I'm artistic, and sometimes it feels like everything is so crammed right now that I don't feel permission to be as creative as I know I'm created to be.
Right.
And then connecting has looked so different.
It has. Let's just talk about connect for a minute. Yeah. I mean, with social distancing, I talk about in the book the science of a hug. And here we are having to all be 6 feet apart. And the science of a hug, by holding a hug for 3 to 5 seconds or longer, it releases dopamine in your brain, which is connection and belonging. So you might not be able to do that to everybody, but find the people you can hug. And I mean, not side hug, but like legit hug. So
not side hug.
So my teens walk through the door, and you better hope that I hold a hug for them. I don't do it in front of their friends. I want them to feel cool, but when they're in our home and they walk through that threshold from a long day, I want them to know that they are loved, they are seen, known, and they belong here. Like, this is their place. We are their people. But good friends too. I mean, you and I you're on my hug list.
We hug.
So, but it's not a large group. Obviously, in this season, you can't just go hugging everybody, but find those people that you are kind of quarantining off with, that you are spending time with, and make sure embrace is part of that. It's just part of being human. It's staying human in this season.
I will say, even talking about a hug made me feel better.
Yeah.
Like just envisioning and thinking about those hugs. So I do think there's power in just keeping our minds focused on that right now. So you have create, you have connect. How differently, outside of the physical connection, what are some of the examples? And you actually, I love that you can track them in your planner and journal. In terms of connecting with someone now in 2020, how can we thrive in connection where all the rules say don't connect?
Right. Well, there is a chapter called potluck over perfect, or open porch policy, this kind of idea of hospitality. How do we invite people in when we're not wanting everyone in our own space? Can we do more creative things outside? You've done an awesome job of this, of like s'mores and guitars and like, let's just sit in the front yard. If somebody comes, people can bring different things. They can bring a blanket. We can sit in the same lawn. We can be in the same room and practice social distancing. You can still have space, but there's something about the nonverbal that is so essential to being in the room where it happens, as Hamilton says, right?
Yes.
Like you want to have experienced that, even if you're not like right up against each other, all that nonverbal is something that you pick up from. So when Scripture says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, that doesn't just mean in large gatherings. It means don't forsake it in your community or your small group or your family or your extended family. Find a way to do it to respect everyone's boundaries, but please push into that. Push into hospitality, because there's such an epidemic of loneliness. There was already one coming into COVID. Now it's only been exacerbated. 1 in 4 teens in the last several months have considered some idea of suicide. 1 in 4, like escalated, magnified, because all they have is a screen with which to connect. And we've got to be this embodiment of being the hands and feet of Jesus to one another, saying, what do you need from me right now? How can I serve you? You dropped off bread to friends. Like just the tactile being with one another is what Emmanuel was. Christ came and was with us. We've got to figure out how to do that in small and simple ways in our neighborhoods and our homes.
How did your time of anxiety and those seasons where it just felt like everything was squishing in on you,
right?
How did God work through you so that you could actually do this right here?
Well, when you think about it, I remember the most desperate longings of my soul. I remember being in the fetal position in New York City, rocking back and forth in my closet, saying, will I always struggle with depression? I remember being gripped on a subway, trying to claw the doors back open because I was having a panic attack of claustrophobia, just wanting to escape. And the thing that God did for me in that moment, and he does simultaneously through these rhythms, is he met me. He drew near to me. He was my ever-present help in that moment of trouble. I cried out. It says in Psalm 18, I cried out, and you reached down from on high, and you pulled me out of a deep water of oppression. You rescued me because you delighted in me. And so that was this kind of moment,
chills.
This moment of, and then it ends with, and with my God, I can attack a barrier and leap a wall. You lead me to a wide open place. So God is a God of deliverance, but he doesn't stop there. He gives us a cadence to walk with him. So just like he was with me in the pit and pulled me out, he now today says, wake up with me. Wake up, commune with me, journal with me, give praise to me, read liturgies of prayers to me, talk to me in your journal, invite me into the conversations you're having with your spouse or with your kids, invite me into what would be good for your body. What are you needing? Do you have headaches? Do you feel sick? Is there an apology that needs to be said to a friend? Is there forgiveness that needs to be extended? You know, God is with us in those crazy moments, but he's in those daily moments as well. And so he took that extreme story of pain to become purpose, to help people know, like, I don't just show up in the valley, I show up as you walk into new life. I'm going to be with you.